You don't know when it started. There was no yelling, no violence, no explosion. Just a slow leak like a faucet dripping into your sense of self, drop by drop, until one day you woke up drowning. Not in water, but in doubt. In silence. In confusion. You ask yourself, why do I feel so small when nothing terrible has happened? That's the genius of covert narcissism. They don't break you. They make you break yourself. They compliment you with a subtle edge. They support you just enough to keep you unsure. They never raise their voice, they just lower your worth. And the worst part, everyone around you thinks they're such a good person. They don't see the control, the gaslighting, the way you've begun apologizing for being alive. This isn't chaos. It's psychological waterboarding done in politeness and smiles. The most effective prison is the one you don't know you're in. That's what covert narcissists build, an invisible cell lined with charm logic and just enough affection to keep you hopeful. But you feel it, don't you? That sinking sensation that no matter what you do, it's never enough. That you're constantly second-guessing yourself. That your identity has been shaved down, polished, and repackaged into something they can manage. But what if I told you you're not crazy? You're just waking up. And once you wake up, you don't owe them a debate. You owe yourself a plan. That's where Stoic philosophy comes in. Not as a motivational poster, as armor, as clarity, as a code to hold on to when the waves of doubt are crashing through your mind and you can't tell which thoughts are yours anymore. In this video, we're not going to just talk about narcissists. We're going to dissect their methods, decode their tactics, and most importantly, give you the tools to stay afloat when they try to drown you in silence, shame, and charm. You'll learn how to hold your ground without yelling, how to respond without explaining, and how to cut off their oxygen supply, your emotional reactions, while remaining composed, principled, and sharp. This is Victory Stoic. And today we're launching a new series that fuses ancient Stoicism with the sharpest psychological frameworks of modern thinkers like Jordan Peterson. So you don't just understand what's happening to you, you act with precision to stop it. If this topic speaks to something real in your life, comment 1 below. If it doesn't quite resonate yet, drop a 0. Your honest feedback helps us sharpen the edge of every message. And if you've walked this path with a parent, a partner, a boss, or a friend, share your story in the comments. Someone out there might be reading it while stuck in their own invisible prison. Like, share, and subscribe to Victory Stoic if you're ready to stop drowning in doubt and start breathing with discipline. The tactics we'll cover next aren't theory, they're survival. Number 1, never seek validation. From someone who lives off your diminishment. You tried to be soft enough for them to stay. You tried to be strong enough to hold it together. You tried to be understanding enough to finally be seen. But no matter how much you gave, it was never enough, because they were never looking to recognize you. They were looking to dissolve you quietly. Covert narcissists don't scream, they whisper. They don't insult you, they omit you. They don't destroy you with chaos. They drown you in silence, in deflection, in quiet rewrites of who you are. Every compliment is wrapped in conditionality. Every moment of closeness is followed by withdrawal. They push you to the edge, then ask why you're so emotional. And slowly, your core begins to rot, not from the outside in, but from the inside out. And yet, you keep reaching for their approval, convinced that if you just explain better love, harder, stay calmer, they'll finally see you. But they won't. Not because you're not worthy, but because their power depends on your invisibility. The Stoics knew this long before psychology caught up. Epictetus said, "You are not obligated to perform your soul for a blind man." If someone has built their identity around minimizing others, then your strength, your joy, your truth, it threatens them. To recognize your worth would mean letting go of their control. And they will never trade control for truth. Melanie, 41, from Minnesota, spent 6 years in a relationship with a man who never yelled, never hit, and never validated her once. When she expressed joy, he shifted the subject. When she shared fear, he accused her of being dramatic. Over time, she began pre-editing her feelings, then censoring them, then burying them. She journaled one night and wrote, "Why do I feel the need to apologize just for existing near him?" That line broke the spell. She realized she was in love with a reflection, not a partner. Jordan Peterson teaches that responsibility is the path to meaning. But first, you must take responsibility for who you are choosing to seek your worth from. He writes, "You must treat yourself as someone you are responsible for helping. And you cannot help someone who begs love from a source that profits off their erosion." Psychology supports this. A 2021 study in personality and individual differences found that people with high external validation-seeking tendencies are significantly more vulnerable to emotional abuse and gaslighting. Covert narcissists exploit this precisely. They feed on your need to be seen, then punish you the moment you ask for it. To survive this, you must stop seeking mirrors in people who only reflect distortion. Their validation is not real. It's bait, and your dignity is worth more than their momentary attention. Practical action. Write a no more list. List every time you've tried to be seen by someone who consistently erases you. Then write a counterline, "I do not need to be seen by the blind." Read it every time their silence tempts you back. Your worth was never on trial. Their capacity to recognize it was. And they failed not because you were lacking, but because they needed you to lack in order to feel superior. You are not dramatic. You are not too much. You are not the problem. You were just in the wrong audience. Number 2, set boundaries like a gatekeeper, not a negotiator. They don't scream. They just step a little closer each time you hesitate. They don't argue. They just smile when you say no, then do it anyway. And when you call them out, they act confused. "I didn't realize it bothered you." But they did. They always did. They just knew your boundaries were drawn in pencil, not stone. And they're betting you won't hold the line. Covert narcissists don't need to overpower you. They just need to slowly shift your threshold for what you'll tolerate. One small favor, one half joke at your expense, one delayed apology, then another, and another. Before you realize it, you've become the co-author of your own erosion. You're not defending yourself anymore, you're justifying why you don't. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. But if you give away that power, inch by inch, excuse by excuse, you become predictable. And predictable people are easy to bend. Boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. They're gates to let the right ones in. But only if you guard them like your life depends on it, because it does. When you don't enforce your boundary, you're not being kind. You're being complicit in your own depletion. Let's bring it to life. Michael, 39, in New Jersey. Divorced father of 2, works in logistics. His new girlfriend is charming, affectionate, but constantly forgets his limits. She shows up unannounced, pressures him to cancel gym time to see her, makes sarcastic comments about his parenting, but brushes them off as jokes. Michael, raised to be nice, doesn't want to create drama, so he lets it slide. Until one weekend, she posted a private photo of his kids without asking. His gut screamed. She said, "Oh, come on, don't overreact." That's when something clicked. Michael realized, every time I avoid conflict, I make peace with my own disrespect. He started saying no without explaining, set rules for access to his space, his time, his kids. She pushed harder. Covert narcissists always do when the game changes. But he didn't argue. He didn't shout. He didn't justify. He just held the gate. She left. But so did the fog in his mind. Here's the Stoic tactic. Treat your time and energy like your home, not a public park. You don't need to post warning signs. You just need to lock the damn door when people start testing windows. Peterson teaches that boundaries are a form of moral structure. If you can't say no, your yes means nothing. Saying no isn't about cruelty. It's about clarity. It's about deciding who gets access to your limited, finite, sacred energy and who does not. There's neuroscience behind this. Studies published in Frontiers in Psychology 2020 show that individuals with weak personal boundaries exhibit higher rates of anxiety, poor emotional regulation, and depressive symptoms. Not because they're weak, but because they're constantly negotiating their safety for social acceptance. That internal tug of war bleeds energy every day. So how do you apply this today? Step 1. Write a personal code. 1 page. Bullet points. I don't tolerate X. I require Y in communication. When Z happens, I walk away. Not for others. For you. So when the pressure comes, you respond from code, not emotion. Step 2. Use the boundary sentence. Memorize this. That doesn't work for me. I won't continue this unless it changes. No anger, no apology, just firmness. Say it once. Say it clearly. Then stop talking. Don't explain your right to self-respect. Step 3. Observe their reaction. The right people will adjust. The wrong ones will escalate. That's not a failure, that's data. Now picture your boundary like a city wall. You are not a soldier screaming at invaders. You are the gatekeeper, calm, still. You decide who enters. You decide who stays. And most importantly, you decide who leaves without warning. Peterson also says, you must stand up straight with your shoulders back. It's more than posture. It's a signal. It says, I will not be bent into a smaller version of myself to keep your comfort intact. And covert narcissists, they hate that stance because they don't want partnership. They want pliability. And when you stop folding, the spell breaks. Here's what no one tells you: they don't have to agree with your boundary. They just have to realize you won't move it. So if your gut has been whispering, this doesn't feel right, if your voice has been going quiet out of fear of conflict, if you've ever said yes while bleeding internally, know this: you're not weak. You're just overdue to build the gate and hold it without flinching. Boundaries are not requests. They are terms of access. Set them like your life depends on it, because the life you're trying to protect does. Number 3, stop explaining yourself. That's their trap. You try to clarify your intent. You lay out the timeline. You give them context, nuance, receipts. You're not defending, you're just being reasonable. You believe that if you're calm, if you speak gently, if you give enough truth, they'll understand. But they don't. They twist it, reword it, feed it back to you, poisoned and deformed. And now, you're not just explaining, you're begging to be believed. That's the trap. Covert narcissists don't argue with logic. They argue with illusion. They don't want clarity. They want confusion they can control. And the more you try to clarify your point, the deeper you sink into their frame where they've already rigged the rules. You say, that's not what I meant. They say, well, that's how it felt. You say, I never said that. They say, maybe you don't remember. And then the worst part, they tell someone else. A friend, a sibling, a coworker. Suddenly, you're not just explaining yourself to them, you're defending yourself to others in a narrative they've already twisted behind your back. This is not misunderstanding. This is misrepresentation as manipulation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't waste what remains of your life in speculating about others unless it has some benefit. You are losing time when you delay acting for what is right by waiting for consensus. What is the Stoic telling us? You don't owe a defense when you know you're aligned. Stop wasting your life clarifying your heart to people who've already decided to mishear it. Let's ground it. Jenna, 34, lives in Arizona, works in nonprofit finance. She dated a man for 8 months who was the nice guy, helpful, chill, seemingly stable. But every time she set a boundary, he took offense. She said, "I need more space this weekend." He said, "Why are you shutting me out?" Then told his friends she was emotionally unstable. When she tried to clear it up, he interrupted with, "So now you're the victim." It took her 3 attempts before she realized this isn't confusion, this is control dressed as conversation. That's when she stopped responding. He spiraled, messaging mutuals, crying in group chats, rewriting the ending to make himself the hero. But Jenna didn't fight the fiction. She exited the stage. That's Stoicism. Jordan Peterson frames it cleanly. Don't try to rescue someone who doesn't want to be rescued. You'll drown with them. When you're trying to explain yourself to someone who needs to misinterpret you to maintain power, you are throwing truth into a black hole. And when you argue with a black hole, you disappear. There's clinical support for this. A 2019 study in Journal of Personality Disorders found that individuals with narcissistic traits often engage in triangulation, the tactic of bringing in third parties to create confusion, force alliance, and isolate the target. Explaining yourself in that setup doesn't clear your name. It feeds their narrative. So what do? Step 1, break the reflex to clarify. When you feel the urge to explain, ask, am I doing this to be understood or to be validated by someone incapable of it? If it's the latter, stop. Step 2, use silent exit logic. When you know they're twisting your words or pulling others in, respond once clearly without justification. You're free to think that. I'm not interested in defending myself anymore. Then disengage. Do not text. Do not revisit. Let them perform to an empty theater. Step 3, close the third-party loop. If mutual friends get involved, don't plead. Don't panic. Say calmly, I don't need to correct anything. People eventually see patterns. That one sentence puts the pressure where it belongs on the narcissist's inconsistency, not your image. Metaphor, imagine trying to pour clean water into a glass with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much you pour, it empties. You're left tired, they're left empowered, and the truth is nowhere in sight. You don't need to keep pouring. You need to find a new glass. The covert narcissist's genius is in knowing this. The more emotionally grounded you are, the more likely you'll try to explain with fairness and logic. They rely on that. They bait you into arguing in circles, not to understand you, but to exhaust you into silence. And once you're drained, they tell others you shut down. Don't play the role they wrote for you. Don't try to clean their mess in other people's minds. That's not stoicism, that's self-erosion disguised as peacekeeping. Peterson warns, the desire to be good can become pathological if it turns into a refusal to draw the line. You draw the line when you stop explaining. You enforce the line when you walk away without rebuttal. Because here's the truth, if someone can twist what you say, they can twist who you are. And once you realize that silence becomes your shield, you don't fight lies with lectures. You fight lies by living so clearly, so calmly, so forward-facing that the lie collapses on its own. Hold the line. Don't fill the silence. Don't feed the story. Let your absence say what your words never could. Number 4, see their kindness for what it is. A tool, not a truth. They didn't hurt you with cruelty. They hurt you with kindness. The kind that felt warm at first, like sunlight in winter, until you realized it was a heat lamp in a cage. They brought you gifts while eroding your worth. They held your hand while cutting off your voice. They smiled while pulling the floor out from under you, and then told everyone how much they cared. That's how they did it. Not by screaming, by smothering you in softness until you forgot how to breathe on your own. This isn't the villain from movies. It's worse. It's the one who says, "I love you, I just wish you weren't so sensitive." It's the one who remembers your favorite food and uses it to soothe the hurt they caused. It's the one who tells others how much you mean to them while quietly draining every ounce of certainty from your soul. Covert narcissists weaponize kindness because it gives them cover. It makes you question yourself. If they're doing all these good things, maybe I'm overreacting. That's not overreaction. That's intuition. Screaming through the smile they've used to keep you still. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The closer you are to someone, the more dangerous the illusion. You mistook performance for presence." But real kindness liberates. Theirs confined. Real love brings peace. Theirs brought submission. You didn't miss the red flags, you just couldn't see them beneath the wrapping paper. Angela, 43, in North Carolina, knows this pain. Her husband was known as the good guy. Always helpful, always generous, always polite. He took care of the bills, praised her in public, supported her projects, and behind closed doors punished her with silent sarcasm and shifting rules. Every time she brought up her loneliness, he made a donation to her favorite charity. Every time she expressed discomfort, he'd post a sweet photo of them online. She felt crazy, ungrateful, trapped. But what she didn't see was that the kindness wasn't love. It was control in a velvet box. When she tried to leave, he cried, said, "After all I've done for you." That sentence told her everything. The kindness wasn't free, it was currency, and he expected obedience in return. Peterson said it best, not all smiles come from benevolence. Some come from strategy. Some are sugar to hide the hook. When someone treats you well, as long as you comply, that is not kindness. That is compliance-based conditioning. You're not in a relationship, you're in a contract with invisible ink. And the worst part, you defend them. You tell others they're not all bad. You list the sweet moments, the good days, the quiet nights. But that's the point. Abuse hidden inside affection is harder to name and harder to leave. Here's what the research says. A 2020 study in Journal of Emotional Abuse found that victims of covert narcissism are 65% more likely to delay leaving emotionally abusive relationships because of inconsistent affection and external social approval of the abuser. In other words, the fake kindness works. It traps. It delays escape. It makes survivors doubt themselves more than the abuser. So what do? Step 1. Stop keeping score of the good moments. A weapon dipped in honey is still a weapon. Track patterns, not events. If kindness follows conflict, every time it's not kindness, it's a leash. Step 2. Write down the phrase, "If I didn't know them, would this still feel right?" Often when we remove history and obligation, the truth roars through the fog. Step 3. Share what they do with someone neutral. Not a friend in common. Someone without emotional investment. Say it plainly. Let the story breathe. See how it sounds without your justifications dressing it up. Think of it like this: the Trojan horse wasn't a bomb. It was a gift. A beautiful gift full of soldiers. The covert narcissist uses charm to deliver sabotage. Their smile says peace, but their hands are rearranging your walls. And the more you try to honor their kindness, the more you dishonor your own suffering. Peterson teaches that morality isn't about being nice. It's about being honest, even when that honesty is ugly. If your compassion doesn't include yourself, it's incomplete. Let that sink in. If you let their fake kindness silence your truth, you're not being noble. You're being used. So if you've ever doubted your pain because they did something good, if you've ever stayed silent because they're not that bad, if you've ever cried and still said thank you, comment the number 4 below. That's how we know this hit something real. That's how others know they're not crazy either. You don't owe them applause for manipulation done politely. You owe yourself the truth, spoken plainly, walked out fully, and never again explained away. Number 5. Know the difference between empathy and self-destructive responsibility. You saw their pain. You heard their story. You gave them the benefit of the doubt again, and again, and again. Because empathy told you that broken people still deserve love. But what you didn't realize was that some people don't want to heal, they want to hook. And if you're not careful, your compassion becomes the chain that keeps you tied to your own destruction. You weren't stupid. You were good. You saw the child in them, the trauma, the loneliness. You thought if you just stayed calm, stayed loving, stayed patient, they would change. And maybe they did for a while. But eventually, you became the therapist, the punching bag, the emotional sponge. Not a partner, not a friend, just a utility for their chaos. This is what covert narcissists feed on, not your fear, but your conscience. They weaponize your empathy. They twist your compassion until you're the one apologizing for bleeding when they're the one holding the knife. The Stoics never taught us to be cold, but they did teach us to be discerning. Epictetus wrote, "Don't confuse kindness with weakness. A blade dulls when it strikes too often where it should not." And this is the line the most kind-hearted people miss. Empathy without limits is just self-betrayal with a smile. Imagine you're standing in a house full of smoke. You're coughing, choking, but telling yourself they just need someone to stay with them through the fire. But they lit the match. And now you're dying trying to keep them company. It's not your job to suffer for someone else's refusal to heal. Let's get real with the story. Kevin, 40, from Colorado, worked in the veteran support space. Deeply empathetic. His ex was brilliant, funny, but emotionally volatile. She had trauma, no doubt. She'd explode in panic, accuse him of abandonment, then beg for closeness. Kevin, a good man, always came back, always calmed her, always said she just needs to feel safe. But the more he stayed, the worse it got. She didn't want to heal, she wanted control. One day after she destroyed his guitar collection, in a rage, he finally said it out loud. "My compassion is killing me." That was the day he left. The day he chose to stop confusing empathy with obligation. Jordan Peterson speaks directly to this. He says, to be able to protect yourself and still choose to help others, that's virtue. But to help others because you can't say no, that's weakness in disguise. You were trained to think that walking away from a suffering person makes you heartless. But let's be clear, staying with someone who refuses growth isn't noble. It's martyrdom. And martyrdom doesn't make you holy. It makes you absent from your own life. There's psychological data to support this. In 2021, Psychology Today published findings on empathic overfunctioning, where individuals continually sacrifice their own well-being to accommodate high-conflict partners. The results: burnout, identity erosion, and complex trauma symptoms in the empath, not the narcissist. Compassion fatigue is real, and it's deadly to the soul when left unchecked. So what's the move? First, create an internal empathy boundary. Ask yourself, is my kindness creating healing or enabling dysfunction? If it's the latter, stop. That's not love. That's participation in your own decline. Second, develop the reverse golden rule. Not treat others how you want to be treated, but don't treat others better than you would let them treat you. This kills imbalance at the root. Third, reframe guilt. If you feel guilty for leaving it, means you're regaining your freedom. Guilt is often the echo of control wearing a mask of virtue. Feel it. Don't obey it. This is where Stoicism gives you steel. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, it is not cruel to stop enabling disorder. It is discipline. And discipline is a form of love for yourself and for others. Empathy should not lead to captivity. It should lead to clarity. Think metaphorically, empathy is like water. Necessary, life-giving. But if poured into a cracked foundation, it causes rot. If poured into a bucket with no bottom, it disappears. You must first contain yourself before you can offer anything sustaining to another. Otherwise, your care is not care, it's leakage. And leaky people cannot carry love, only loss. There's also this, if someone depends on your empathy to stay functional, they're not in a relationship. They're in a rescue mission, and you're the rope they refuse to climb. Peterson again, you must become someone capable of saying no. Not because you're mean, but because you're not willing to participate in what destroys you. So no, Stoicism is not about closing your heart. It's about choosing who enters. It's about discerning who actually wants to grow and who just wants you to shrink. The covert narcissist cries when you pull away, but not because they're hurt. They cry because the fuel source is leaving. Your empathy is no longer available to smooth over their damage. And to them, that's abandonment. To you, that's liberation. You do not owe compassion to someone who builds a throne out of your guilt. You do not owe gentleness to someone who uses your softness as leverage. And you do not owe your light to someone who stands in your shadow and calls it love. So draw the line, hold it steady, and never apologize for protecting the one person who will suffer most if you keep forgetting them yourself. Number 6, write down the truth before they rewrite it for you. You remember what they said until they say they didn't. You remember how it felt until they tell you you're too sensitive. You begin questioning your memory, not just events, but meaning, not just words, but reality itself. And slowly you lose the only thing keeping you sane, the confidence that your perception is valid. That's not forgetfulness. That's gaslighting. Intentional, strategic, and done with a calm voice and a warm face. Covert narcissists don't destroy your memory by screaming. They distort it by smiling while lying. They leave out key pieces, add in subtle suggestions, and speak with such conviction that you begin to think, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm misunderstood. Maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe it's not worth bringing up again. But the doubt you feel, that's the signal. That's where the war is happening. You're not just trying to survive the manipulation. You're trying to stay tethered to reality. Because once they fracture your sense of truth, they own the narrative. And once they own the narrative, they own you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change. For I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone, only the persistence in self-deception harms." But when someone keeps changing the truth itself, you don't grow, you decay. That's why journaling isn't therapy in this situation, it's survival. This isn't Dear Diary. This is documenting the battlefield. Writing what was said, when it was said, what you felt, what happened after. It's not for revenge. It's not for proof. It's for you to remind yourself that you're not losing your mind. You're losing contact with a false version of the world that someone else keeps trying to sell you. Let's ground this in a real-life example. Darren, 38, from Oregon. Software engineer. He was in a 3-year relationship with a woman who never yelled, never cursed, never threatened. But she denied, minimized, and re-edited everything. If he expressed hurt, she said, "I never said that." If he brought up a conversation from days earlier, she'd reply, "Wow, I didn't know you were keeping score." Over time, Darren started apologizing for things he hadn't done just to keep the peace. He started journaling only because his therapist told him to track his emotions. But after 2 months of rereading what he wrote, the pattern became impossible to ignore. He wasn't crazy, he was being conditioned. And his journal was the only mirror that didn't lie back to him. That's the Stoic application record without emotion. Document without narrative. Let the facts speak louder than the manipulation. When you write it, you anchor it. And when they try to unmoor you with doubt, you don't have to argue, you just return to what you wrote. What you know, what actually happened. Jordan Peterson speaks to this idea of anchoring reality through responsibility. He says, your story becomes chaos when you fail to track the truth. Tell the truth, or at least don't lie. That starts with telling it to yourself. The first person who must believe you is you. And when you don't write it down, your mind under constant psychological stress becomes porous, susceptible, moldable. And manipulators know this. Science confirms this too. A 2017 study in cognitive psychology showed that memory under emotional stress becomes significantly more malleable, especially when faced with conflicting versions of events. But participants who journaled daily, even briefly, showed stronger cognitive resistance to false memories and emotional manipulation. This isn't just mental hygiene, this is psychological self-defense. So how do you use journaling as a Stoic weapon? Step 1, keep a reality log. Not emotions, not interpretations, just facts. She said X, I replied Y. Then she responded Z. Keep it cold, clear, daily. Just 5 minutes. Make it ritual. Step 2. Mark manipulation moments. Highlight entries where you notice contradictions, denials, shifting stories. This builds your internal radar. Over time, you'll feel the gaslighting before it confuses you. Step 3. Use it for clarity. Not justification. Don't show it to them. Don't use it to prove. Use it to recover your own spine. Read it when you start wondering, am I being unfair or did I make that up? You didn't. And here's the record. Think of it this way. If your mind is the courtroom, your journal is the evidence locker. When the abuser returns to the stand, smooth, calm, smiling, and starts twisting your memory, you don't panic. You open the file. You read the page. And you remember, I saw what I saw. I heard what I heard. I felt what I felt. This isn't cold-hearted. It's self-respect in practice. Stoicism isn't the absence of emotion. It's the refusal to be ruled by emotion at the cost of truth. And when truth is under attack, your pen becomes your sword. Peterson says, if you don't speak the truth, you betray the part of you that survives on it. But writing the truth, that's speaking it to yourself every day, even when no one else will listen, especially when they won't. This is your record, your history, your rope back to solid ground when the tide of manipulation pulls you under. Because you are not forgetful, you are not fragile, you're not overreacting, you are documenting your escape, one honest sentence at a time. Number 7, remember they don't want resolution. They want confusion. You bring logic, they bring fog. You try to fix the problem, they shift the problem. You think if you just explain it the right way, with more empathy, more patience, more clarity, they'll finally get it. But they don't. Because they're not looking for peace. They're looking to trap you in chaos, a chaos that never ends because it was never meant to. You think you're having a disagreement. They're conducting a performance. You come in to repair. They came in to control. And the moment you engage, they win. Not because they're right, but because you've agreed to dance in the dark with someone who keeps moving the floor. You ask, can we talk this through? They say, I don't like your tone. You ask, can we just focus on the issue? They say, you always make it about you. You stay calm, stay kind, stay open, and still every road leads back to the same place, nowhere. Because covert narcissists don't want resolution. They want you confused, drained off center. They thrive in ambiguity. Every time you try to make things clearer, they blur the lines just enough to make you question your sanity. That's not miscommunication, that's design. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Seneca wrote, "The mind that is grounded in clarity cannot be shaken by confusion, only seduced by it." Clarity is your weapon, and the covert narcissist's greatest threat isn't confrontation. It's a partner who refuses to chase clarity they've already earned. Let's get real. Lisa, 36, from Chicago, dated a man who never had a straight answer. One day she found flirtatious messages on his phone. When she brought it up calmly, he replied, "I can't believe you'd invade my privacy like this." Days later he said, "You're the only person I've ever trusted, and now look what you've done." Every time she had proof, he had a deflection. Every conversation that started with a goal ended with her apologizing for the way she brought it up. Until one night, after hours of circling arguments, she went into the bathroom and whispered to her own reflection, "I'm arguing with a magician." And that was it. She stopped. No more explaining. No more unraveling threads he'd tied together. She wrote one sentence in her journal, "I will not negotiate with confusion." That became her new mantra, the clarity that set her free. Jordan Peterson puts it even more bluntly, people who twist language to manipulate others are not speaking, they are programming. And you don't negotiate with a program designed to trap you. You exit the system. You shut down the loop. You choose silence over the bait of circular logic. Psychological research backs this up. A 2022 study in Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that engaging in unresolved circular arguments with manipulative personalities significantly increases cortisol levels, weakens short-term memory, and heightens susceptibility to emotional breakdown. That's not a conversation, that's a biochemical trap. Here's what you do instead. Step 1, spot the loop. When the discussion starts circling, you've addressed something clearly and the reply leads away from the issue, recognize it immediately. Say to yourself, this is not a conversation. This is control. Step 2, use the mantra. Speak it aloud or in your mind. I will not negotiate with confusion. Then disengage. Not emotionally, physically. Walk away. Leave the room. End the call. Step 3, name the pattern privately. Write it down. Track how often clarity turns into fog. This is not to analyze them. This is to protect you, to see how often your presence is being weaponized against your peace. Think of it like this: they aren't playing chess. They're flipping the board. You're bringing strategy to someone who enjoys the sound of pieces crashing. You can't out-logic chaos. You can only refuse to enter its orbit. Peterson reminds us, when someone makes you doubt your reality consistently, they are either dangerously confused themselves or dangerously in control of you. Either way, the solution is the same exit: the storm. Don't analyze the wind. So if you've been spinning in circles with someone who always rewrites the rules, if you've ever walked away from a conversation more confused than when you started, comment the number 7. That lets us know this is your reality too. This is not your fault, but it is your move. Clarity is not something you ask permission for. It's something you choose and defend. Number 8, your consistency is their greatest threat. They don't fear your anger. They don't fear your arguments. They fear your predictability, your calm, your routine, your standards that don't bend. Because when they can't shake your rhythm, they can't control your reaction. And if they can't control your reaction, they can't distort your reality. To a covert narcissist, consistency is a mirror, one that reflects their chaos too clearly. It exposes their instability, their deflection, their dependency on confusion. So they will do everything to break your pattern. They'll start fights just before your workout, guilt trip you on the day of your promotion, sabotage your boundaries right when you finally hold them, not because they don't understand, but because they do. They are not reacting to your failure, they are reacting to your alignment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A man's worth is measured by the direction of his will." In a relationship with a manipulator, your direction becomes your lifeline. The more you move forward in a straight line, the harder they work to curve your path sideways, downward, anywhere but onward. Take Brian, 42, from Tampa. He had a structured life: morning runs, meal prep, budgeting time for his kids' focused work hours. He dated a woman who praised his discipline, at first called him admirable, rare, so put together. But slowly, the compliments turned. "Why are you so rigid? Can't you skip one day for me? Why do you care more about your schedule than about us?" And she began to test his routines, texting emergencies before gym time, demanding emotional processing when he was headed out the door. The more consistent he stayed, the more volatile she became. Until he realized her love was never for him, it was for her ability to interrupt his flow. The Stoics would have called this spiritual warfare, because a man anchored in discipline cannot be lured by dysfunction. His peace is not up for negotiation. And that unavailability, that grounded, calm refusal to break pattern, terrifies the manipulator. Jordan Peterson said, "Order is the antidote to chaos, but order is difficult. It requires sacrifice, structure, and the courage to endure resentment." Your consistency isn't just a habit, it's a declaration. You can't reach me where I've built my peace. Here's the science. A study from Clinical Psychology Review 2020 found that individuals with strong routines and high behavioral consistency were less likely to be influenced by emotionally manipulative tactics, including guilt, gaslighting, and passive aggression. Why? Because stability short-circuits emotional volatility. Predictability disarms those who thrive on disruption. So how do you weaponize your consistency without becoming cold or robotic? Step 1. Define your daily non-negotiables. These are not suggestions. These are the core behaviors that keep you centered, your anchors. Whether it's 30 minutes of solitude, your workout, your journaling, or structured sleep, you hold them like sacred ground. Let no one touch them. Step 2. State, don't defend. When they challenge your consistency, don't explain it. Don't argue. Say, "This is part of who I am." Then move on. Any justification becomes an opening. They don't need understanding, they need to see the wall. Step 3. Track your reactions. Create a disruption log. Every time you break your flow because someone pulled you into their storm, write it down. Look at the pattern. Recognize the triggers. Protect the rhythm of your life, like a warrior protects the perimeter. Imagine your consistency like a metronome in a noisy room. Tap, tap, tap. Everyone else tries to sing louder, shout over it, throw off the beat. But if you keep the tempo no matter what, eventually the noise stops trying, or it leaves. That's the point. Consistency reveals what manipulation tries to hide, that you are not theirs to bend, that you have a center, a code, a pulse that does not change just because someone else panics. Peterson also said, "The disciplined man is not boring. He is terrifying because he cannot be moved." And that's exactly why manipulators panic when you stop bending. They've lost the handle. The game is over. So when they say you're cold, too rigid, unavailable, hear the subtext, "I can't control you anymore." Let that be your confirmation. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to threaten, punish, or chase. You just need to keep doing what you said you'd do. Every day, no matter how they spin it. That's the counterstrike. Your consistency is not a weakness. It's not selfishness. It's not emotional unavailability. It is the one thing they cannot corrupt, and the one thing that will eventually set you free. Number 9. Your growth is their worst nightmare, not your rage. It's not your anger that haunts them, not your insults, not your silence, not even your departure. What truly crushes a covert narcissist is the day you rise. Quietly, powerfully, unapologetically. The day you become wealthier, wiser, stronger, more radiant, not out of spite, but out of alignment. That's the day they lose control. That's the day the fantasy collapses. Because the covert narcissist doesn't want to destroy you. They want to own the version of you that stays small. The version that explains, that apologizes, that keeps looking back to check if they approve. The moment you outgrow the cage they built, their world shatters, not because you betrayed them, but because you proved they were never needed. When you win quietly, you expose their weakness without saying a word. When your skin glows, when your bank account grows, when your presence becomes undeniable, and they're no longer part of the story, that's not a breakup. That's extinction. They don't want you broken. They want you beautiful, but beneath them. Talented, but unsure. Driven, but dependent. The moment you become all those things without them, and they face the one truth they've avoided their entire life. They were never the source of your power, only the distraction from it. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In your case, the best revenge is not to hate them. It's to outgrow their shadow so completely that they can no longer cast one. Let's ground it, Raymond, 45, New York. After a draining 3-year relationship with a covert narcissist who constantly undercut him, subtle digs about his business, backhanded compliments about his body, passive-aggressive remarks about his dreams, he finally left. Not in fury, but in silence. No explanations. No goodbye. He poured all that energy into building his company, training hard, refining his circle. 2 years later, he was in peak shape, earning triple, mentoring others. One day she messaged him, "You've changed." He didn't reply. Because he hadn't changed. He had returned to who he was before she edited him. Jordan Peterson writes, "When you become formidable, you awaken resentment in those who cannot follow. Your light isn't offensive. It just exposes who's still in the dark. And some people would rather dim your shine than confront their own shadow." Psychologically, this is called narcissistic collapse, a breakdown triggered when the person they once dominated becomes visibly, undeniably better without them. It's not just ego pain. It's identity death. You were a mirror. They can no longer see their reflection in you. Now they see your back, moving forward, untouchable. Here's the Stoic principle. You don't owe your light to those who mocked your fire. You don't need to explain your progress, or offer proof, or be kind to the person who watched you drown and blamed your swimming technique. Step 1. Level in silence. No need for social media applause. Your success is not a weapon. It's a boundary. Let them wonder. Don't update them. Don't correct their narrative. Just build. Step 2. Root your growth in peace, not performance. Don't rise to show them. Rise because staying small for someone else's comfort was spiritual death. Step 3. Expect sabotage attempts. They'll bait you, gossip, play victim, send mutual friends. Don't engage. Their tantrum is confirmation that your glow-up is real. Think of it like this: they planted weeds in your garden and laughed when nothing grew. You cleared it, watered it, and now roses bloom. That beauty, that order, it terrifies them, because it proves they were never necessary for your blooming, only in the way of it. Peterson also says, "The man who can stand up straight and speak the truth is the most dangerous creature alive." And the most dangerous truth you'll ever live is this: I never needed you to become whole. So know your downfall won't give them peace. Your success will give you power, and that power doesn't scream. It just stands tall while they sink into the silence you used to fill. You don't have to hate them. You just have to outgrow them completely, quietly, and never look back. Conclusion: they didn't want you to heal. They wanted you to need them forever. They never feared losing you. What they feared was watching you stop needing them, stop explaining, stop apologizing, stop shrinking. Because once you walked away and didn't collapse, the illusion shattered. You weren't the broken one. You were just breaking free. See, covert narcissists never expect you to rise. They expect you to stay small, stay confused, stay reachable. They want to be the expert of your pain, the author of your guilt, the audience of your endless effort. They don't mind you being talented as long as you forget it. They don't mind you being beautiful as long as you question it. They don't mind you having potential as long as you never act on it. But when you do, when you finally stop chasing validation and start building your own peace, that's the betrayal they never recover from. Because they were never in love with you. They were in love with the version of you that looked up at them for approval. They called it love, but what they wanted was a mirror, not a partner. And now you've become something they can no longer recognize or control. Still, calm, clear, dangerous in the way only someone free from illusion can be. You don't need revenge. You need a routine. You don't need closure. You need clarity. You don't even need to win. You just need to walk so far past them that they disappear in your silence. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best answer to anger is silence." But let's go further. The best answer to manipulation is evolution. And the best answer to the narcissist's performance is your absence from the audience. So if this video cut deep, if you recognized yourself in the slow unraveling, the gaslighting, the false kindness, the emotional erosion, comment the number 1 below. If it didn't quite hit yet, comment 0. We're building every piece of this content to serve real minds walking through real fires. And if you've survived one of these relationships, or you're surviving one right now, drop your story in the comments. Your clarity could be the light someone else needs to escape their fog. This is Victory Stoic, where you don't just understand the damage, you repair from it with power. Like, share, and subscribe if this kind of truth hits where it needs to, if you're done rehearsing the trauma and ready to write your next chapter with disciplined silence and a spine made of iron. Because the goal was never to destroy them. The goal was to remember who you were before they edited you. And once you become that person again, you'll never explain yourself to confusion again. You'll never dance with chaos again. You'll never go back, not even to say goodbye.